Let's take a look at the cosine law in activity 2. If you remember back in activity 1, we were looking at the sine law. And the sine law works really well as long as you are given an angle and the length of the side that is opposite plus one other piece of information. That way you can use the sine law to solve for an unknown side or an angle. In this case, we're not given side B, so if we're going to set up our sine ratios, we're going to use angle A and side A, because we're given both of those, along with angle B, which is given, and side B, which is not given. And we'll use the sine law in this form here. What if you're given a triangle where you're not given an angle and the length of the side opposite it? That's where the cosine law comes in. Now there's a number of different ways to write down the cosine law depending on what you're trying to find. For this first example, we're going to take a look at calculating a length of an unknown side in a triangle. This first equation is going to help us calculate A when we are given the length of B and the length of C, as well as the enclosed angle A. So on this diagram, this is the length of B, this is the length of C, and A is the enclosed angle. To use the cosine law to calculate the length of A, we must have the information on this diagram. To calculate A, we start off with A squared equals B squared, and in this case B is 15, so it's going to be 15 squared, plus C squared, and C is 12, so it's going to be 12 squared, minus 2 times the length of B, which is 15, times the length of C, which is 12, times the cosine of angle A, which is 80 degrees. Now, we just have to figure out how to type this into our calculator, take the square root of both sides, and we can determine the length of A. What if we were asked to find the length of side B? Well, to use the cosine law, we would need to know the length of side C. And let's say, for this example, that's 12. We would also need to know the length of side A. And let's say that that's 20. And the last piece of information we need is the angle enclosed by side C and side A. And for this example, let's say it's 60 degrees. Now we can use the cosine law to state that B squared is going to equal A squared, which is 20 squared, plus C squared, which is going to be 12 squared, minus 2 times the length of side A, which is 20, times the length of side C, which is 12, times the cosine of angle B. Notice that we have angle B here in the equation, and we're looking for B. Now, we just punch this in on our calculator and determine the length of side B. Let's take a look at a couple questions. So in this first triangle, we're given the length of two sides, and we're given the angle enclosed by those two sides, and we're looking for the side opposite that angle. So let's label this triangle so that we can use one of our three forms of the cosine law. So I'll say that that's A, B, and C, which means that this is side B, this is side C over here, and this is side A. So I'm going to use the cosine law because I'm looking for side B. I'm going to use it in this form. B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC times the cosine of angle B. I'm going to substitute in what I know, so it's going to be B squared equals A squared. Now remember A was 5, so it's going to be 5 squared plus C squared, and C was 3, so that's going to be 3 squared, minus 2 times 5 times 3, which is A and C, times the cosine of angle B, which is 70. Now these numbers are fairly easy to work with, so let's go ahead and do some of this in our head. So 5 squared is 25, 3 squared is 9, minus 2 times 5 is 10 times 3 is 30, and then cosine of 70. B squared is going to equal 25 plus 9 is 34, minus 30 cosine of 70. Now let's get our calculator out because I don't think we can go much further here because we need to know what the cosine of 70 is. If you're going to find out this independent of everything else, in other words, if you're just going to calculate cosine of 70 first and then plug it into your equation, you need to use 4 decimal places. So to type this in on a calculator, I'm going to start with 34 minus 30 times, and remember this is a backwards calculator, so I have to enter in the angle first and then cosine. Figure out what that equals, and now we know that b squared is 23.7. But we're looking for b, which means that we have to take the square root of both sides, which means that b is going to be approximately 4.9.